Hey, what's up? It's Chris Gonzalez back again for another episode of my single issue recap, but I'm going to be rebranding it. It's now going to be called Single Issue Saturdays because I plan on dropping these videos every Saturday, and I'm going to be going over some of the issues that I picked up on New Comic Book Wednesday and some digital comics that I've read. So this week I'm going to be talking about 5 books, and again I'm excluding the Age of Revelation issues because I'm going to be compiling all my thoughts on every issue 2s that are released in November, and so I'll be dropping that video by the end of November or early December, so be on the lookout for that, and you can check out my thoughts and opinions on all the issue 1s in my previous video for the month of October, so check that out. So first book I'm going to be discussing is Planet Death #2, and this is co-written by Derek Kolstad and Robert Venditti, and Tomas Giarello is the artist, Sonny Go is the colorist, and Tom Napolitano is the letterer. And this is published by Bad Idea, and it's pretty much about a soldier it's set in a futuristic dystopia. Humans are at war with this alien race, and they invade the aliens' planets. They need to destroy a weapon, and the whole motto is destroy the weapon, return home. So in the first issue, it was released a couple months ago, and so I had to reread that issue to remember what happened. And so our main protagonist, his name is Scott, and he is, again, they're deployed to this planet. The battalion of humans send drop ships to the planet's surface, and the aliens, they have their defense systems. They shoot most of the drop ships out of the sky. So Scott, the main protagonist, he survives, and he's now behind enemy lines. So he's still trying to fulfill his mission and return home. So the artwork by Giarello is just incredible, and the coloring, look at how gruesome that is. There are a lot of double page spreads that are beautiful here. So Scott, he hides in this cave to, hide from the aliens, to try to start a fire, and goes into his backstory in this issue, and very emotional moments. He's thinking about his wife and his daughter on Christmas while he's trying to start the fire, and then he gets interrupted by this monster. Look at that. Very, very cool artwork. And then so gets into this fight with this monster. Monster's kicking his butt, but Scott's not going down without a fight. And he takes the fire, throws it in his face, and then he eventually kills the alien. But then he realizes that those are egg sacs. He's like, egg sacs? He realizes that this monster was the mother, and she was just protecting her offspring. So he feels bad. He gets out of the cave, and he trips and falls down the hill. Gets knocked out a little bit. Again, reminisces about his wife and his daughter, and again, he just wants to return home. And the aliens, they're still looking for him, so he tries to hide from them. And his suit injects him with different chemicals to, either he gets injected with adrenaline or MRE. I'm not sure what that stands for, but he gets injected and he's ready to go. And then he needs to get more gear, so he rummages and scavenges through the dead bodies of his fallen comrades, and he comes across this guy. Look at his gruesome face. This guy is about to die, so Scott, he tries to console him and comfort him in his last moments. Scott asks this guy about his family, and the guy tells Scott that he has a wife named Jenna, a daughter named Sam, who's captain of the basketball team, and his son Donnie, who plays drums. So a very touching moment between these two. And Scott says that he'll remember his family, but I'm not sure if this is a typo, because the guy says his son is Donnie, but Scott keeps repeating this guy's family's names, and he says Ronnie, so that could be, I think that's a typo, but that's just a nitpick. So Scott, he eventually comes across this convoy of aliens, and he realizes that they have prisoners of humans. So Scott goes to save them. He gets into another brawl. Again, the artwork really sick. And again, another Scott, he gets knocked out again. Keeps getting knocked out, but very touching. Thinks about his family again. They're on Christmas. This is during Christmas. So while he's incapacitated, the aliens are trying to buzzsaw through his armor. And then he gets injected with a max dose of adrenaline. And my boy's ready to go. Look at that. So he fights off all the rest of the aliens. He beats the crap out of them. And then he eventually rescues the prisoners. But look at this. He just beats the living hell out of this poor alien. Very gruesome artwork. Yeah, he liberates the prisoners. And he tells them, okay, we gotta finish the mission, destroy this weapon, and go home. But twist is, the people he rescued, they don't want to go home. So what's that all about? We're gonna have to find out in May of next year. That's when the issue comes out. So it's kind of a bummer, but really enjoyed this. It's just a fun action sci-fi series, so I recommend it. That's Planet Death #2. So, and then next book we're going over is from Marvel, and it's Amazing Spider-Man #15, written by Joe Kelly. The art this time is not Pepe Larraz. It is Emilio Rezo. He's the guest artist. Colorist is Marcio Menez, Marte Gracia, and Eric Archinega. And Joe Caramagna is the letterer, but Pepe Larraz did the artwork. So, again, this past few issues, it's alternating between the Earthbound stories and the Spacebound stories. Earthbound, again, Peter was in his fight with Hellgate. He got beat up so bad, Hellgate essentially punched him so hard that Peter was transported to another end of the galaxy. Not sure how that happened, but we'll probably figure out later. But on Earth, Norman Osborn is pretending to be Spider-Man in the suit, while Ben Reilly is masquerading as Peter Parker in Peter Parker's normal life at his job at Rand Industries. So in space, it's essentially like a Guardians of the Galaxy story. So, but issue starts with Peter having a dream about Aunt May, and it ends up being a nightmare. Crazy image. Hellgate's in the corner right there. So Peter wakes up to Rocket, and it seems like Rocket got them in some kind of trouble. So they port on a planet called Skyrid City, and Rocket apparently owes this guy who has a bunch of arms a lot of money. This alien's name is Din Wicket. So Rocket owes a lot of money to this guy, and Peter tries to help Rocket against Rocket's own will, but Peter, asks Dinwiddie, okay, what do we have to do to relieve the debt? So pretty much Dinwiddie's like, okay, well, we're doing a pay-per-view event, you have to fight, essentially. So in collaboration with Mojo's network, Peter goes into the fighting arena and fights this giant alien. It's called Takathian, but they call it Betty. So Peter has to fight Betty, and the commentator for the fight says that there are 3 combatants in the arena right now. But Peter's like, what do you mean? It's only 2. But turns out his suit is a living being. So Peter's used to that, back in the day with the symbiote suit, but his suit's actually a Technarch that Xanto was experimenting on, and unbeknownst to Peter. So Peter tells Xanto, well, he asks him, is the suit still alive? And Xanto's like, yes, still is alive. So Peter's like, okay, how do I free it? How do I make it gain consciousness again? And Xanto was just like, oh, just say reboot. So Peter reboots the Technarch, and it goes through the Technarch's memories and Peter's memories. Find out that the Technarch, he made a deal with Xanto, and Xanto, being the nefarious scientist that he is, tricks him, and then again goes back to Hellgate. So the Technarch, his name is Glitch. Glitch helps Peter with the battle against Betty, and then the rest of the gang gets into the fight as well. Glitch gives Peter another part of himself so he can get the suit back, but it's not as powerful as it once was. And yeah, so while they're all fighting, Rocket is trying to kill Dinwiddie, and then Glitch gets a hold of Betty and then warns Dinwiddie, like, hey, I'll get Betty to eat you. So Rocket's debt is paid, so they go back to the ship. Rocket's upset that, again, Xanto was experimenting on them, and he's upset with Peter about teaming up with him and still, working with him. But while Peter tries to explain the situation to Rocket, this girl, what's her name? Her personality is similar to Drax's personality in the Guardians of the Galaxy movies, but what's her name? Her name is Raylith the Wretched. So she pulls Peter's to the side, and because Peter pretty much forego having a powerful suit to free Glitch, and she asked him why'd he do that, and Peter just says it was the right thing to do. So when he says that, yeah, my boy Peter's got some game. They make out, and who is this girl? We do not know who that is, so I guess we'll figure that out. But I thought this was another solid issue. Wasn't the best, but it was very fun. I really dug it. I'm really digging Joe Kelly's run of Amazing Spider-Man. So, especially when Pepe Larraz is on the artwork. So, next book I'm going to go over is, I read it digitally, and it's Batgirl, number 13 by Tate Brombal is the writer. Takashi Miyazawa is the main penciler, and he did some of his inking, and Juan Castro contributed to the inking as well. Mike Spicer is the colorist, and Tom Napolitano, again, is the letterer. And I've been loving this series from the beginning. It's been really fun, very action-packed, dealing with Cass's relationship with her mother, Lady Shiva, and spoilers, at the end of the first arc, Shiva dies at the hands of the main antagonist so far of the story, and that's the Unburied. And so Cass is, on a revenge quest to take the Unburied down. She has teamed up with Nissa Al Ghul, and in this issue, Nissa tells Cass, in order to defeat the Unburied for good, we have to destroy their supply of the blue poppies, and these flowers give the Unburied their powers and also heals them, so they got to get rid of the supply. And so they find the main stronghold that holds all the flowers. So Cass, her brother Jade Tiger, Tenji, Turner, Angel Breaker, Aruna, and Jaya JS go on a mission to infiltrate the Unburied stronghold, and they're trying to destroy the flowers. And the artwork by Takashi Miyazawa has been really great. He's really good at drawing the action sequences. Feels like an anime, so if you're into anime, you'll really dig this. And the plus with Mike Spicer's colors, it's just so vibrant, especially when they go into the Unburied stronghold. A lot of blue hues, and I really dug it. So they come across a few Unburied patrolmen. They knock them out, they take their clothes, and they infiltrate the stronghold. And then you get a view into the daily lives of the Unburied citizens. So we kind of got a hint of that in issue 5. So I really appreciate it. We get more insight on how they normally live. And so while Cass is, infiltrating, she comes across this reenactment, like this puppet show of Ra's al Ghul and Nissa first coming into the ranks of, well, not the ranks, but the Unburied took them in, and Ra's al Ghul and Nissa end up betraying the Unburied, and Cass finds out that the safe haven that Nissa supposedly started for her new League of Shadows, they actually stole that from the Unburied. It's called Samasera. Yeah, Samasera in the Himalayas. And they took that from the Unburied and forced them out. So that's why the Unburied are so pissed. And then it's also revealed that Lady Shiva was also taken in by the Unburied, and she betrayed them as well. And that's why the Unburied, they wanted to kill Shiva, her offspring, and anybody associated with the League of Shadows. And so Cass can't believe this. So she starts to get a panic attack, but then the man who killed her mother shows up. His name is Kalden, and Cass is just seeing red. She starts to get angry, and she starts to unsheath her katana, and that's where the issue ends. So next issue, it looks like we're gonna have a brawl between Kalden and Batgirl. So I really dug this issue. A lot was revealed. Like throughout the whole series, we didn't know exactly why the Unburied were after Shiva, Cass, and anybody associated with the League of Shadows. Like we got some hints, but we didn't know everything. But we got a lot of info. There might still be some information that in details that we don't know yet, but yeah, how's Cass going to react to what she found out? I know she still wants to kill the guy who killed her mother, but still, like, the Unburied were just retaliating for the lands that they lost. So she's put in a very precarious predicament. So we'll see what happens next. But I really dug it. Highly recommend Batgirl. If it's not on your pull list, please add it to your pull list. It's just a fun series, and if you like anime, martial arts, you'll really dig it. And the next digital issue that I read is a spin-off and tie-in to DCKO, and that's Knightfight. It's issue 1. It's a 4-issue miniseries. So spoilers if you haven't read DCKO. So in the first issue of DCKO, Batman, he's about to enter into the tournament, but at the last minute he gets killed by the Joker. He gets stabbed in the back, but you really don't get killed. You get transported somewhere where their body's like encased in some type of stone. So this happens to Batman, but Batman always has a contingency plan. So he had armor that's made out of apocalyptic tech and a boom tube. So he had it set up where if he's inactive for a certain amount of time, he'll make the boom tube transport him back to Gotham. So this happens. But when Batman returns to Gotham, it's not all as it seems. And I forgot to mention, so the writer for Knightfight is Joshua Williamson. Artist is Dan Mora. The colorist is Triona Farrell. Again, letterer is Tom Napolitano. And yeah, so Batman, he gets to this version of Gotham. He doesn't recognize it. And Dan Mora's art is just incredible here. Like, there's a double page spread where Batman, he's crouched on a building overlooking the city and the new environment. And it's just the coloring by Farrell along with Dan Mora's artwork was just very riveting. And this version of Gotham's more bright. There's a lot of neon colors. It's set somewhat in the future. So Batman, he doesn't recognize it, and then all of a sudden he gets attacked by a group of Robins that he doesn't know who they are. He never trained them, but he recognizes their fighting styles, he recognizes their movements, and he has an idea of who might have trained them. And then eventually he runs into this Gotham's version of Batman, and he guessed right that it ends up being Dick Grayson. And when Dick Grayson sees Bruce, it's on sight. He says that if he ever saw Bruce again, or if Bruce ever returned, it's war, because I guess Batman has been transported to an alternate reality, and in this world, Dick Grayson became Batman. And Dick, he tells Bruce that his body was breaking down, so he went to the Lazarus pit, and it turned him crazy, and he just refused to give up being Batman. So they end up fighting. The action sequences were just drawn really well, and yeah, so they end up fighting, and Bruce doesn't want to hurt Dick. He's trying to tell Dick that, hey, what's going on here? I was just in a tournament to help to defeat Darkseid. Dick thinks that Bruce is just acting crazy as symptoms of being in the Lazarus pit. And yeah, Bruce is trying to reason with Dick, but Dick is having none of it. So they still fight, and I enjoy stories where Dick Grayson's Batman. Like, one of my favorite Batman stories of all time is Batman Black Mirror by Scott Snyder. And I just feel like, I love Bruce, don't get me wrong, but I feel like it's just the natural progression to have Dick be Batman. And so I really dug this issue, and it was really surprising because I enjoyed DCKO. I thought it was cool. It wasn't the greatest, and we'll see how it plays out, but I had no expectations going into this miniseries. and it just, blew my expectations away, and I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed this more than the first issue of DCKO, and this was actually my favorite issue that I read this week. Story by Williamson's on point. The artwork, again, Dan Moore has been killing it. He's on a tear lately. And when we get to the ends, Bruce is asking Dick, like, where are your brothers? Where's Jason? Where's Tim? Where's Damian? And Dick's just like, what are you talking about? You killed them. And the last image shows Dick having Bruce in a headlock, and Bruce seeing monuments of Jason, Tim, and Damian. So in this world, Bruce ended up killing, all of them. So we'll find out what happens next. I really dug this issue. Again, my favorite of the week, so definitely recommend it. And can't wait for the next one. And the last book I'm going to go over is Batman issue 3, written by Mac Fraction, art by Jorge Jimenez. The colorist is Tamu Mori. Clayton Cowles and Jorge Jimenez does some of the lettering. And this follows issue 2. And it kind of runs a little bit parallel to issue 2. It starts with this kid. He's interviewing this woman about, her history with Gotham. And I liked how she tells him, maybe people in Gotham changed the most. We're all on our own, and now it seems nobody's helping anybody except for you-know-who. And she makes the bat ears. And then she tells, in Hudson's, this kid's name, and she tells him, never say his name out loud unless you need him, Hudson. But they hear gunshots outside, so Hudson goes to the fire escape, and again, this is happening during what happened during issue 2, so Tim Drake putting Batman in the Batmobile. So Hudson gets all this on footage, and then eventually he gets footage of Vandal Savage placing the Batarang at the scene of the crime. So essentially, he sees Savage trying to frame Batman. And then we go to the hospital where Vandal Savage is interrogating and intimidating the cop that was at that scene. And he's trying to blackmail the cop. And while he's doing that, Bruce visits Tim. Check on Tim. And then while that's happening, Bruce overhears a newscast where Hugo Strange is debating with Dr. Zeller from the first issue with Killer Croc. And she has invented a device with funding from Wayne Enterprises, and it's called the Crown of Storms. It helps regulate electricity in the brain. It calms overstimulated regions and excites understimulated ones. So she's using this to help her patients. That's what it is, and that's also on the cover here. So this issue revolves around that, and then it cuts to Bruce sparring with Damian. I thought this was fun. Damian's apparently he got accepted into Gotham University very early, so Bruce just tells him that it's a good idea to go, and then Damian just low blows his own dad. Messed up, Damian. But then eventually cuts to Jim Gordon. He calls Harvey because Vandal Savage has declared pretty much war on Batman and Robin. So Jim Gordon is trying to set up a meeting with him, Harvey, and Batman. So he tells him, set up the bat signal. This is a new bat signal. It's a little stuffed animal. So, and then back at Wayne Enterprises, they're having a board meeting, and they're trying to get into, creating weapons for the military, but Bruce doesn't want any part of that. Then cut to the meeting with Jim Gordon and Harvey. And Jim is just telling him that Vandal Savage has issued orders to shoot on sight and deputize a private mercenary squad to do the job. So I thought this part was funny. Harvey's like, how are you gonna do your disappearing act on this small building? And then Batman ends up doing that. So, and then Riddler ends up breaking into this building where they're holding the Crown of Storms, tries to steal it, but Batman's there. He has this new stealth suit, which is pretty badass. And I like how they give like details about the tech. They've been doing that. It's, again, another great image drawn by Jorge Jimenez, and the colorist really elevates the artwork. So he gets into a fight with Riddler, and Riddler is after this device because he needs to help. He needs help because he's having riddles just constantly are going off in his brain, and he's just trying to get it to stop. So Batman sedates Riddler, and he takes him in the Batmobile, and it cuts back to the kid because he goes to this guy. He's trying to, I guess this guy works at a newspaper, so he's trying to tell him about the footage that he recorded. And yeah, so Batman takes Riddler to he's taking him somewhere, and he asks Riddler like, hey, did Hugo Strange put you up to this? And Riddler's like, no. And he tells Batman another riddle that's anagram, and it's revealed that Dr. Zeller is actually using that device at the patients in Arkham. So is it for nefarious ways? We'll have to find out, but I love that image right there, the Batman just speeding off into the city with the blue streaks. I love that. So another solid issue of Batman. Not as good as issue 2, but I did like it a little bit better than issue 1. So I've been really digging Matt Fraction's run so far. So we'll see what happens next. So that was it. Again, enjoyed most of the issues. My favorite was Knightfight. I think my least favorite, I mean, not that it was bad, it was probably Spider-Man, but I still enjoyed all the issues. So again, the Age of Revelation stuff, I'm going to be compiling all my thoughts and opinions on the issue 2s that are released this month in November. So be on the lookout probably towards the end of the month, early December. And you can, again, check out the video I dropped going over all the issue 1s that were released in October. So yeah, let me know what you thought. Let me know what's on your pull list this week. If you read any of the books that I read, let me know your thoughts. And yeah, just like, comment, subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And again, thanks to those who have been watching. I really appreciate it. And yeah, be on the lookout for my next video next Saturday when I go over the issues that I picked up. So thanks again. Peace out.